Hello and welcome to Smash Hit Sports. I am your host, Cody. We have a collab that has been, it's been a couple weeks in the making. A week.
I feel like maybe into the months.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie.
Look, we have Hot Seat Nick on, at Hot Seat Nick on TikTok. Nick, are you on any other, because I follow you on TikTok. Are you on like Twitter, Instagram? Are you anywhere else?
No. That's just really my personal stuff that I post on, yeah. Well, I got to get out there, though.
His content game on TikTok is second to none, so you got to make sure you follow him over there. If you're watching on YouTube, his @'s on the screen, but if you're listening to the audio version, it'll be linked below. Nick, welcome on, man.
Dude, I'm happy to be here. Pumped.
We got the Super Bowl just ended, right? So we are right in the middle of college basketball season. It's incredibly great. We have a lot to talk about. So let's talk college basketball because we're right in the heat of things. We are getting prepped for conference tournaments. We have an idea of who teams are and who teams aren't. Let's talk contenders, legitimate, actual contenders. I have the top 25 pulled up in front of me. There are some teams on here who are absolute frauds. But let's do contenders.
I'm interested to know who you think is a fraud.
All right. Do you want to start frauds or do you want to start contenders first?
We'll start with contenders.
All right.
We'll
keep it easy for the people. I'm going to start number one in Houston. Their defense is so goddamn good. What Kevin Sampson has done there as a head coach is nothing short of impressive. They're going to make a great addition to the Big 12 whenever that change actually happens. Houston is so legit.
Yeah. See, my thing with Houston is I watched them play yesterday and I was like falling in love with them very actively because Memphis had like 12 turnovers in 10 minutes and it was just like chaos. And Houston has one of the better rosters too, because I feel like the talent disparity is such a big thing in college basketball where it's crazy to have this kind of like almost super team talent-wise. And they're so good on defense, great coach. But Memphis was without like a 26 points per game scorer in Kendrick Davis. And they were on the road in Houston and like put up a really big fight. Like that game was pretty close. They, I think, covered the spread. And I just found myself like, I love how this team plays, but like why is this happening without Memphis' best player at home, expecting dominance, didn't see it. So I feel like it's almost a prequel to the craziness we might see with when March comes around. It's just great teams dropping.
Yeah, and their defense is there, and when their offense isn't consistent, like they played, I think it was Cincinnati earlier in the year, and it was at home, and they like struggled. It was like a 3 or 4 point game late in the second half. I still think as long as they can continue to have good defense, I think they will be fine. But
defense and guard play, right?
Yep.
Those are the two things you want the most when it comes to March.
Yeah.
You got to have guys that can shoot the three. They have Marcus Sasser, but we'll see. And again, I think they lost to Temple at home, too, which is crazy.
Yeah,
they can absolutely have bad games.
Yep, and that's like all it takes is one in the tournament. All it takes is one bad game. But
exactly, which is what makes it so beautiful.
All right, give me a contender on your end. Who you think?
Okay, so I like UVA, and part of the reason why I don't like, or I like UVA, is I think a lot of people don't really know enough about them. They're not necessarily getting the ESPN games or like that primetime Saturday game because the ACC sound.
Yep.
And I've watched enough of it because Clemson, I follow ACC basketball probably the most. Tony Bennett is one of the last remaining like great coaches in the game, like a coach that's won, right? Jay Wright gone, Coach K gone, Roy Williams gone, blah, blah, blah. And Tony Bennett won recently, and they still have their starting point guard from that team. They have great guard play. Virginia is always going to play great defensively. And I think the reason Virginia won in 2019 is because they had really good shooters. They had guys that could like fill it up from three. And when they don't, then they can fall behind and not come back. But this year, I think they have good shooters again. Great defense. Team chemistry's high. Veteran guys. It just depends if they can get hot at the right time. But I like them. I think they could win it all.
Yeah. I mean, any team coached by Tony Bennett is going to have a shot. And between him and like Bill Self, I think are two. Mark Few, I guess, but Mark Few hasn't won at all at Gonzaga. But like those are some of the few like great coaches left in college basketball. You're not wrong on Virginia at all. I mean, they're another team that they got enough experience, and they come out like people kind of knock on the ACC just because it doesn't have some sort of like elite top dog that you expect out of a. I mean, UNC was the number one team in the country preseason AP, right? And they're looking at possibly not making the tournament, but
yeah, which is so crazy.
I legitimately think they might end of the season. They have, as of right now, I don't think they have a single quad one win, and they have two left on the schedule.
They have two left. They have to win one.
Yeah. So
But again, I think they almost have to win out, if I'm being honest. So we'll see.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. But Virginia, absolutely, like if they go in, they win the ACC tournament, they have a chance to be a 1 seed in a year where they have not been talked about hardly at all.
At all, yeah. Like that's and there's two things I have with that. Is one, I think you were kind of maybe thinking this a little bit, but the ACC like is in a down year, but I think that's because the computers, Ken Pom, Sagarin, all these things, they don't like the ACC. But in reality, they didn't like the ACC last year, and we had 3 ACC teams in the Elite Eight, right, and 2 in the Final Four and 1 in the championship game. Yeah. And it's like, okay, I think the media sees that like Ken Pomeroy thinks that the ACC is just bad, and then you have like no quad one games in conference. It's basically like playing in the Mountain West. Therefore, when UVA has a tight game against like Pitt or Louisville is a bad example, I guess, because they really but Louisville played close with Virginia and Notre Dame, and people are like, oh, well, UVA is fraudulent as hell. How are they only winning by 5 against a 3-win Louisville team that Clemson lost to? But I think the ACC is not actually as bad as the media is portraying it. They just go off the computers a lot.
I agree 100%.
Yeah.
Another contender I have, I want to go out west, UCLA. We're going to get into blue blood talk, but a perennial. I love Mick Cronin. I loved him when he was at UC, and I think he's a really good fit out in UCLA. They have an experienced team that played Gonzaga to, tooth and nail. That was 2 years ago. I think UCLA, when they are playing some of their best basketball, their most turnover-free basketball, because I think that's been a little bit of their problems this year, I think they absolutely have a shot to make a run deep in March.
I agree with that. They're on my contender list. I love Mick Cronin. Again, that team fits into the system where defensively they are incredible. I think they're top 5 defensively. They have a great coach. They have veteran leadership, and they have not the best guard play, but good guard play, and they're a really good free throw shooting team. So I feel like it's kind of a gut call too, but they have everything it takes to make a run, and we've seen them do it these past couple of years. So I like that pick for sure.
All right, give me one. I need it.
Yeah, I have. I'm trying to choose. How many are we going to do? 1, 2 more?
Let's do one more each. So this one for you, and then another one, and then I'll do one more too.
Okay. So I got 2 more picks here. Golly, I feel like I can't pick Purdue. Won't pick Purdue. How about a sneaky team? How about Creighton?
I am so torn on Creighton.
I am also.
Explain to me why. Because there are games where I'm this is a top 10 team in the country, and then there are games where I'm I don't think they're going to win the Big East.
Right. So this is a different perspective on it. But they started the year ranked pretty highly, and then made it to the Maui final, I think, and lost to Arizona.
Yeah. Yep. Arizona.
And it was oh, this Creighton team's getting a bunch of buzz. They look great. And then they lost 6 in a row in non-conference. And it was Jesus Christ, what is going on over here? No one had any clue. It wasn't getting that much coverage because this is December basketball. But then Creighton goes out and wins 8 or 9 in a row.
Streaky.
So that's the thing, is that it really depends. Like, if they go into the Big East tournament and are playing really good basketball, I can see a way where it's like they're just hot right now. And that roster, that starting five in particular, has everything you want. Nembhard, Trey Alexander, Shireman, the guy, lefty from, North Dakota State, South Dakota State or something?
Yeah.
Luma and Kalkbrenner. That's like one of the best starting fives in college basketball. They just need to make sure that they're playing their best at the right time, because as we can see, they won 8 in a row. They can win 6 in a row and win March Madness. So
yeah,
that's kind of like a sneaky team for me.
Yeah, you see them at their low, but then they'll beat they beat Xavier handedly. Like they beat Providence. Like they've looked good against some of the better teams in the Big East. It's like, what are we?
Yeah, I think that's a better way to word it would be like, if they do string together like 1 or 2 wins, you're going to want to look out, because like they can absolutely keep going with that. Whereas some teams could win like the first 2 games by 30, but then go out and get a dud. I trust Creighton that if they're playing really well, to continue to play really well.
Yep. I agree. Another team that's towards the top that I think the loss to Tennessee sucks. The loss to Tennessee absolutely sucks, but the game was at Tennessee. It's a tough game. I think Alabama, I don't think he'll win the National Player of the Year, but I think Alabama has the best basketball player in college basketball in Brandon Miller.
I agree. Yeah, I agree.
Like, don't get me wrong, I think Edey wins the award, but I think Brandon Miller is the best player in college basketball. So between that, I like Nate Oates. I think he's a good coach. Give me Alabama as a team that I would be shocked if they didn't make the Elite Eight, especially, and we'll talk about who we think is going to get 1 seeds, but I think they're going to end up with a nice seed. I think they're going to end up making a deep run into this tournament. I think they're absolutely contenders.
Yeah, I mean, I've always been, I've always like talked to people about like Wembanyama and Scoot Henderson and like how crazy this NBA draft's going to be. And I've watched enough Bama basketball to like sort of have this thought creeping into my head that maybe Brandon Miller will be the best of the bunch. Like if I were a GM,
that's a bold statement. That's a bold statement.
So if you look at how he plays, like that is the exact prototype of what any NBA team wants. You know, like that's the star prototype. He is great catch and shoot, great shooting off the dribble, has a ton of size. Like he's like basically Paul George is like.
Yeah, I think that's a good.
And I think he can be that immediately. And it's like, okay, some of these other guys are also fantastic, so it's really hard to say. But like, I don't know, man. I feel like Brandon Miller is all-star starter level talent. Like if he pans out.
Yeah.
So I agree with that pick. I wouldn't put him in my I don't think I'm going to pick them.
That's fair. That's fair.
And I think maybe I have some sort of intrinsic bias towards it, but just having Alabama win college basketball championship would really just upset me.
The egos in the South would just be tough. I don't know if I could handle that.
I would just really and it's like Tennessee can go and do it. Like it's just Bama almost specifically. Maybe like an LSU, I would hate like these teams that have had so much success in football. They can't go do it in basketball too. Yeah. So
it's like I have a whole animosity towards Boston sports, and I have no reason to. It's just that they've had too much success. So same thing with Bama basketball. You don't deserve that. Like that would be like Bama baseball winning the College World Series in Omaha or something. It's like, give it to somebody else.
It's just you've had enough. They can make a big run, but cutting down the nets, I don't know. But anyway, we'll move on to the frauds, or do I have one more?
Get one more. I need to hear.
I think I have one more, actually, yeah. All right, so, I mean, you were kind of going high on the rankings there. And if I'm going to go up there, I'm going to have to say Kansas. And
Bill Self, I mean.
It's Bill Self, and I think that in a year where it's like a lot of the teams from last year when Kansas won it all, in my opinion, kind of like lost talent or didn't really get that much better.
Yep.
Right? Purdue is an example where, like, they kind of had that roster, and they replaced Jaden Ivey with Fletcher Lawyer.
Yeah.
Like, I'd rather have that team last year. I guess Edey has one more year of experience, but it's kind of like, okay, Kansas just lost a lot too. They lost Abaji, and Jalen Wilson's this new guy. But if it's like, okay, I think at the beginning of the year I thought, well, there's no way Kansas can do it. They lost too much talent. There's just no way. But I think a lot of other teams did too, and they have enough remaining pieces to, like, know how to play in March. And we haven't seen a repeat in so long, so I feel like that'd be a smart move when you're making your brackets to actually pick a repeat, because I don't think a lot of people are going to do it.
Yeah, I don't hate that at all. I think Kansas has been, like, as far as returning national champions, they have not been talked about like reigning national champions. So
I know, yeah.
I agree with that. I agree with that. But with winners, there are losers. I don't think I think Purdue is as fraudulent as they come. And this might be my Big Ten bias because they have not won a national championship since Michigan State in 2000. I just don't have confidence in them to win close games. Like, they stumbled against IU. They couldn't hold off Northwestern this week. Like,
that game was crazy. I mean, Purdue had that game kind of locked in, right? Like 8, up 5, 2 minutes left.
Yeah.
I do blame a little bit of home court advantage. I think Purdue has proven that they can play really well on the road, but a lot of these teams that are actually good in the Big Ten are going to get this huge boost against Purdue. And I don't think Purdue's lost at home.
Yeah,
so.
But Ross, like, the Boilermakers have a phenomenal home court advantage. So it's one of those, it's like, are they really bad away from home, or is their home field advantage or home court advantage just that good that, like, you don't have to worry about them? It's interesting because I would like to see them win some tough road games. So we'll see how they do in the Big Ten. Like, if they don't win the Big Ten conference, I have a lot of questions. I think they will.
I mean, I do think that they're like 1 or 2 losses away from falling off the one line. And then if they were a 2 seed, it would be so much harder for me to say they're going to go all the way. It also is kind of like Purdue's a team where, like, if you close your eyes and just picture, like, Purdue,
the confetti test,
it doesn't really feel right. I don't know why. Maybe that's just me, but I think they could do it. I've watched enough Purdue this year where it just depends if the Big Ten is actually good or not, I guess, right?
Yep, I agree.
Okay, anyway, frauds for me. I'm going to start actually, just to stay on schedule here, I'll start with a Big Ten team as well in Indiana. Again, they don't have, Xavier Johnson, I think?
Yeah, he's out.
Right, so I actually haven't really watched them play with him, but their best scorer other than TJD is Hood-Schifino. And Hood-Schifino reminds me of, like, Johnny Davis, but, like, worse kind of. And that Wisconsin team was a 3 seed, but they barely got past Colgate and then lost to Iowa State. TJD is really just, like if you can make sure he doesn't get the ball in the low post, he's going to be useless.
Yeah.
Right? Fast break, he's great. But if he's, like, kind of high post or, like, has to, like, back down to get to the rim, no shot. Like, he's so containable, and he can't shoot. And you want your best player to be able to shoot. Like, so I don't know. I think they're going to run into a team that can, like, play good defense. And I think a lot of people are, like, really high on Indiana too, just because they're flashy.
I agree with that 100%. They are a team that if they catch a bad matchup early, like, they could be bounced in the round of 32. Like, if they don't catch, if they catch somebody who can play good posty and force that offense to slow down, like, not let them get points in transition, I think they'll have a really hard time. I think
if they played a team like UConn, if like in a 4-5 matchup,
Yep.
they're burnt toast. They're screwed. They're done.
I love that. I love that pick actually. Like that would be a great matchup. That would be a phenomenal game.
Yeah, it might happen. We'll see. I'd be very excited for it though.
Yeah.
All right, you go.
Oh, give me another pretender.
Okay. I have 4 written down, but I feel like one of them I won't talk about because I think everyone's really kind of thinking it right now, but Tennessee.
Oh, okay, good. That's who I was going to pick.
Yeah, and so I'll let you talk about Tennessee, but my other 2, I'll go first is Arizona. It stinks, and a part of it is that growing up, like before I really like knew what I was doing, like I was just a huge college basketball fan, but like I kind of picked with my heart and stuff like that. I loved these Arizona teams growing up with Derek Williams and a couple of these great players. And they were like in a 2, 3, 4 seed range, and I would have them going far all the time, like Final Four every year. They never did it. And that's when they had Sean Miller. They don't have Sean Miller anymore. They have Tubelis, who might win Player of the Year. It's him or Edie, really.
Yep.
But they don't have guard play, really.
Yep.
Like their guards are afraid to shoot, I've noticed. And I've seen them really struggle / lose to some bad Pac-12 teams, which is insane to me how a team that's like a contender could like lose to like Stanford.
Yeah, that Stanford loss was brutal.
And by like a good amount too. It's just like I feel like they're gonna find themselves in a game where they are just like panicking. They're like, oh no, we're down 8 and they're playing really well on our bigs and our guards have to shoot and they're just throwing up bricks and it's like, oh my God, what's happening to Arizona? And then they lose. So
yep. Yeah, no, that's a great pick. I agree with that 100%. I think we'll see a little bit more about Arizona if they end up getting matched up with UCLA in the Pac-12 championship, a game that I would love to see, but they're going to have to go through some like decent, like if they play, like Oregon's a pretty tough team. Would love to see that matchup. It'll be interesting.
I think they play UCLA again last week of the regular season.
Do they? Oh,
I think so.
Yeah. I think that'll tell us a lot. I think that'll tell us.
I think it's in UCLA because Arizona got them already. In Arizona, I think. Yeah. We might have to check this. I feel 78% confident on that. But regardless, yes.
78. That's good.
Yeah, 81 if we're pushing it.
That's a good number. Yeah, it's my last pretenders, Tennessee. I don't trust Rick Barnes. I don't trust this Tennessee team. They are so streaky. When they are hot, and they can shoot. But when they can't, like that game that they played against Auburn that had a total score of under 100 was disgusting.
Under 90.
Yeah, it was like 46 to like 43. It was disgusting.
I had the over in that game. I'm not even kidding.
Thoughts and prayers in your trying time because that is just a.
Well, they put me out of my misery pretty quick, right? Like I was like, "There's no way this hits."
Yeah,
like 5 minutes.
I guess it's better to lose that way than it is to lose on like a backdoor cover or whatever. Like,
or by like 1 or 0.5 or something. So yeah, I was like, you live and you learn, I guess.
Yep, but I
love that Tennessee pick.
I have no trust in him. No trust.
Here's something. Like, can you name more than 3 Tennessee basketball players like on the roster right now?
No shot.
Right?
No shot.
I feel like I could do that for every single team. Maybe in the top 25. Tennessee, I don't even know. Like sometimes I'll do prize picks and whatnot, and like the only guy you can take is like Santiago Vescovi, the guy from wherever. And I think Argentina.
Yep.
And he's not good. He's not good.
Yeah.
He takes way too long to shoot.
I just don't trust. Like they don't have like every team in that like top tier has a guy that it's like if you need a bucket to get yourself some momentum, some rhythm, something. I don't know if Tennessee has a guy.
That's a really good way to put it. Yeah. Like they're really well coached because Rick Barnes is a great regular season coach.
Yes.
He's fantastic in the regular season. But yeah, I all year have been like, how the hell are they this good? I've bet against them a bunch and profited a bunch, especially recently. And I'm going to continue doing that because I don't like them. In my eyes, they're like a 5-6 seed, and they've outplayed their expectations this year. Especially when Julian Phillips, their freshman star, who's like a top 10 recruit, like barely puts up like 8 points a game, like barely, maybe not even like 6. So I don't know. Yeah, I don't like Tennessee. My last pick would be, and this one is really tough because I go both ways. I find myself like, oh man, I like this team a lot, but it's Marquette.
Yeah,
I don't know. I'll be interested to hear your thoughts, but I do love Shaka Smart.
Same. I love Shaka Smart, and I just can't, like, it's like there's something missing, right? Like there's one, and I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's a player, if it's something schematically. I can't fall in love with them.
Yeah, it's like they have like two bigs who are like would definitely be coming off the bench on like a Kansas or like any other team that's in the top 10. And then their two guards are good. I like them. Tyler Kolek's like great. He's this crafty white boy. But I don't think anyone knew about them at all. Like they were not like supposed to be this good. And so part of me is like, are they actually this good? Or is the Big East sort of this like realm of like no one actually knows what's happening in that conference? And so for me, I just think I have to stay away from Marquette unless in these next 3 weeks something speaks to me from that team. But I don't trust them at all.
Yep.
Even though they haven't really done anything to prove me otherwise.
Yeah, I agree. I agree 100%. Is it like I just can't? There's nothing that I love, so you're kind of forced to hate them. But like, it'd be if they were a 16, like if they were the 16th best team in the country, I would feel better. But because they're ranked at 10,
yeah,
I don't believe in them as a top 10 team.
That's probably right. Yeah, I mean, 16 would still be like, oh, they're still outplaying in my opinion, but they do feel like a ranked team. Yeah. It's just more again, kind of like a 6 seed that maybe I'd be like, oh, maybe they upset this 3 seed. But if they're going to be a 2 or something, like which they could be, I doubt it, but they could be. No way, right? Like I would love to see what 7 seed they would be matched up against. Because fraudulent 2 seeds are my favorite to pick against, right?
Okay, so let's talk seeding. I want to hear. Let's do 1 seeds first, then we'll do 2 seeds, and I'll let you go. Right? Who are your maybe not 1 seeds right now, but like who are you predicting to be the 1 seeds come Selection Sunday?
Yeah, so the only thing that I would change from what it is right now, and what it is right now is Kansas, Houston, Purdue, and Alabama, right?
Yep.
Yeah, so I think Kansas drops out. They might lose to TCU tonight. That's a big one. Mike Miles is back. They're on the road. TCU already beat them this year. We'll see. It's like a pick 'em. And I think UCLA is going to get a 1 seed. I know we just had the preview come out on Sunday. Did you catch the preview?
I did not. I did not see the preview.
Okay, yeah. So the selection committee was like, as of right now, these are in order your top 16 teams, like and what seeds they would be, blah blah blah. And they had UCLA as an 8 or a 2 seed, but the 8th overall team, and Arizona as a 6. But I think that's almost a little bit better for UCLA because now they're playing against a team that is better than them or has a better resume in the committee's eye. In Arizona, maybe twice, they've 2 opportunities to just win out, dominate the Pac-12, win that championship, and then take that last 1 seed. So it'd be Purdue, or let's go in order. I think Houston gets the 1 overall. I think Bama 2, Purdue 3, UCLA 4.
I like that. I have something similar. I have Houston 1, Houston at the overall 1, Bama at 2. I actually have Kansas at 3, UCLA at 4. So instead of Kansas, I have Purdue dropping out of that top spot. I just don't. I think if Kansas wins the Big 12 and UCLA wins the Pac-12, I just don't find a way to pull them out if Purdue drops 1 or 2. And I'm worried that because they play IU on Friday or Saturday.
Purdue does?
Yeah.
Should be at home, though.
Yep. It'll be in Purdue, so it'll be, they'll have home field advantage, but I don't trust Purdue all the way. So I'm gonna put them. So I'll go through my 2 seeds then. I have Purdue, Baylor, Arizona, and Virginia as my 2 seeds.
Yeah, I like it. I will say, follow-up thought to, just last thing about Purdue and Kansas is what it comes down to is, for me, what team is gonna has the best chance of winning their conference tournament. And I feel like Kansas might not actually be the 1 seed in their conference. Purdue probably will be.
That's fair.
Pretty much guaranteed, I think. And then I think the Big 12 is so good on a neutral court. Someone could take down Kansas. I feel like it's less likely, although it's still likely that someone takes down Purdue. That's sort of where it is. But I would agree that it's kind of one of those teams is going to get that one. But yeah, so do your 2 seeds one more time for me.
Purdue, Baylor, Zona, and Virginia.
Gotcha. Yeah. Okay. So no Texas in there. Interesting.
There's so many, how many Big 12 teams can you put in the top 8 seeds?
Right. But I guess for me, the only thing I would do is I would replace Texas with Baylor. That's another toss up. I just think I like Texas more. Although when it comes to the tournament, I would probably actually lean Baylor more just because I like Scott Drew more.
Yeah.
And they have better guard play. Barely.
Texas just has such a brutal schedule. Their last 4 games, they play Iowa State tomorrow at home. They play Baylor at Baylor Saturday. Then they get at TCU and then Kansas at home. That is the rest of their schedule. They play 4 ranked teams the rest of conference play.
But think about, again, we're talking about 2 Big 12 teams right now, but the committees, those are all quad 1 games, high-end quad 1 games. And Texas already has both Texas and Baylor and Kansas have so many quad 1 wins already.
Yeah.
But with 2 of those at home, one being Kansas, which is a huge one, that I think they'll win, and then Iowa State, I think they could do. If they could beat Baylor or TCU on the road, they could almost sneak into 1 seed territory. So I feel like
that's fair.
I feel like if they do drop those 2, but win Kansas and Iowa State games, they're still right there on the 2 line for me. Yeah. It just comes down to maybe who goes farther in the Big 12 conference tourney. But yeah, easily could be Texas or Baylor.
Yeah. The Big 12 has just been so much fun to watch.
Yeah, fantastic. Yep.
All right. Who did you say your 2 seeds were? Have you gone through them?
Kansas, Texas, Virginia, and Arizona.
Okay, cool.
Mm-hmm.
We're pretty much on the same line. Let's talk about the March Madness expansion proposal. I think it was 96 teams that they were thinking about sending it to.
Oh my God!
I think that is the shittiest idea of all shitty ideas.
I'm so upset. When I saw that, I was so upset. It would steal my happiness from me. And I think it could work, but we don't need Nebraska at 15 and 16 sneaking into that 20 seed playing game. You know what I mean? We don't need.
My thoughts on it are we already see some games that are just brutal to watch in the tournament, and
yeah.
I think it also devalues you're going to get bottom half of conferences making the tournament, the bottom half of Power 5 conferences, and I think it kind of belittles the importance of
the regular season,
winning some of these conferences that aren't not your Power 6 or whatever. I hate every ounce of it. This is the one I love March Madness. There's nothing wrong with March Madness.
Yeah, it's the one thing that's actually perfect in the world, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And I think going on your point, it belittles the regular season a little bit. Teams like Oklahoma State and West Virginia that play later today, they are fighting for their life on the bubble. But if it was a 96-team tournament, they would probably be confirmed in just because they're in the Big 12, right?
Yeah.
Resume-wise, they would need to pick up like 4 or 5 Big 12 wins out of 18 games. If they're like 4-14, they could maybe make the tournament, and that's just so dumb to me. It's like you have to earn it, in my opinion. And some of these Power 5 teams, they just wouldn't be earning it. But I think there are ways that it maybe could be done where I wouldn't be that upset. That being, like, if you push back a couple days when it starts or something, and you kind of have this like big, massive play-in tournament, and all of like the 14, 15, 16 seeds play in it against some of those like lower end Power 5, Power 6 teams or whoever the committee sees. I don't know if that would work. I don't know if like a 16 seed against like DePaul.
Yeah.
I don't know if that maybe that'd be a good game or something. But then like whoever wins ends up taking that seed, and then we still get that 68 team tournament or 64.
Yeah.
That could work. It just wouldn't make me happy though, because again, it's the tradition of it is so beautiful.
Yep.
All right.
I agree 100%. On the other side, college football, I'm actually for the 12-team playoff.
I'm very for the 12-team playoff.
I don't a lot of people who are against it are saying, oh, well, it devalues bowl games. Bowl games as they stand right now don't, outside of your New Year's Six, they don't carry a ton of weight. And I understand like it's important for these programs to win bowl games, but at the same time, this makes it so that a lot of the people complain about college football saying, oh, it's the same 4 teams every year. Well, now you will never have to worry about that ever.
Right.
Because if it does happen to be those same 4 teams, they earned that Final 4 spot. Like they didn't get there just because they have a, Buckeye on the side of their helmet. They made it because they
have Clemson's easy ACC schedule and they just coast in, right? Like Clemson would have to earn it.
Yes. Like they would have had to have beaten Tennessee to make it into the college football. Like that makes it important. Like that makes everything so much more intense. And I understand that like it devalues the regular season a little bit. Like every loss is still paramount. Like any bye that you're going to get is tremendous. Home field advantage if they have those opening rounds in college stadiums, which that
is my favorite part. Is the idea
home playoff game. Tennis. Let's just paint this picture of a good team from the SEC. Let's say Florida comes in to Death Valley in Clemson for a home playoff game. Do you know how awesome that would be?
The town of Clemson would be off the rails. It'd be the most packed it's ever been in history. It'd be insane.
Yeah. And you get, right now, I feel like we have teams shying away from really good home and homes a little bit, just because of how conference realignment's going right now. I think they'll come back, but it's rare to see really good home and homes in college football nowadays. And to get teams to play each other in these environments is going to be awesome. Awesome.
Fantastic. Yeah, it would be amazing. It would happen at the perfect time too. It would be like you're at the tail end of the NFL season, but like you're not really there where like every game matters, and it's kind of just like
because
college football would take over the world for like a month.
Yep, because some of those teams are already eliminated. So like a lot of your NFL matchups are meh at best. You get a couple good ones every week, but
you're already out of your fantasy playoffs too in like week 15. Yep. You're like, oh my God, I don't care about watching Red Zone as much. I'm going to tune in, obviously, to this.
Yeah.
And this is the thing that I always push on people, because I do know some people, mostly like Georgia fans. And again, I'm being from Charlotte. There's a lot of Southeastern football teams that mesh here. But I think what it would do, especially with NIL, is it would have way more like talent disparity, in the sense that, let's say the first year, a team like Ole Miss or like who you can name anyone, like Oregon State, I don't know.
Yep.
They just, for some reason, make the college football playoff as like an 11 seed, and they win a game, I think what that does, money-wise, booster-wise, NIL-wise, and just like recruiting from a popularity standpoint-wise, would be like exponential. It'd be like, oh, like Oregon State or teams like that are just kind of like on this slope where it's like maybe they're going to pull teams, and then like Auburn does it one year, and then Alabama has like a worse recruiting class because they didn't perform as well in the college football playoff. And it would take some time, but I think eventually we would have like the argument of devaluing the regular season would be moot, just because these games would be way more evenly matched in a sense. Whereas Ohio State, instead of just playing Michigan and Penn State and then just coasting the rest, maybe they have to play like Minnesota, who had like a pretty good recruiting class for them.
Yeah.
And is on the up and up. And it would just be like, okay, now it's like Ohio State dropped the game, but they really did have to earn it to make it. Or Clemson has to play this Louisville team that's actually good, even though they're not ranked. Like, people within the culture would be like, yeah, but this Louisville team has talent. They have blah, 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 blah. So
I agree 100%. The thing is right now, I think you can confidently say there are 5 to 6 programs who a coach can walk into a recruiting visit and say, if you come play for me, you have a shot to play for a national championship. That's like Ohio State, Clemson, Bama, Georgia, maybe Oklahoma, USC-ish, right? LSU,
perhaps.
Right? So there's less than 10, right? You can count it on 2 hands. When this college football playoff expands to 12, you now have teams who I would consider like when you talk about the greatness of college, like Texas will never be out of it. Florida State will never be out of it. Notre Dame will never be out of it. Like not that they'll never be excluded, but it'll never be to a point where you could say, oh, like these teams don't have a shot. And then you get teams
like week 4, when Texas has 2 losses in week 4.
Yeah,
it's like, oh, they're
and you're
done.
like, oh, you're done. See ya.
It would be really cool to be like, oh, wow, like they lost like a close Bama game and lost to like Texas Tech or something, but like they could just turn it on, right? Blah, blah, blah.
Yep.
So I completely agree with that. And I think like if there was a 3-year period and you looked back, I think there'd be like 26 unique teams to make the playoffs out of like a potential of 36. So we would see, instead of from like 2017 to 2019, where it was like
7 or 8 different teams,
maybe. In 3 years, it was like, okay, you look back, like if you were from the future and told someone like, oh yeah, like your team just never had a chance for 3 years, they're not going to care as much. But if you were like, oh, there's 28 teams that make it in these next 3 years, and like so many of these schools, like the Utahs of the world, these teams that are like on the fringe, on the cusp, they're going to be right up there.
The hype that would bring to a program would be awesome. It would be incredible. Like,
yeah, I think we're gonna have a lot of teams that are 1 year in, 1 year out, but then the next year it's like, well, they could absolutely do it this year because blah blah blah. So yeah, I'm definitely pro. The whole argument of like, oh, like the extra week is so awful and blah blah blah. Like I don't get it. Like they're playing too many games now. I don't get it. Although, did you see the new rule suggestion that the college football board of execs proposed?
No. What was that?
It was earlier today, and they were saying they're just like on incomplete passes and whatnot. Like the clock's going to keep running, which I thought that was insane because they were trying to shorten the games because they're adding games to eventually like make sure that they're not liable, I guess, for like more injuries.
I don't love that.
Yeah, gut reaction is like, what the hell?
Yeah, I think my problem is it changes how games. There's no if going out of bounds is the only way to stop the clock, it's going to tremendously change how games end. Don't love that because the endings in football games are the best part. The other thing,
it would like incentivize like going out of bounds to where I feel like we'd eventually get annoyed by like slant routes that just go like right out of bounds.
It reduces the quality of the product in what is already like if you're going to argue, oh, what's the difference between the NFL and college football? The college football is great. The NFL are the best players in the world. And you're going to take that college football product and make it worse. I don't love that. What I would almost rather do is, instead of doing something like that, either implementing a bye week or implementing a standard number of conference games. And that's where I think that I give SEC fans shit all the time for it. They hate me on the internet for it. That week before rivalry week, where they schedule fucking the University of Alabama School for Farmers and Children, is the dumbest shit on the planet.
Alabama, Prairie View, A&M, Wesleyan.
Yeah. But they do it every year, and they only play 8 conference games. So if you're going to sit down and say, hey, these games are tough, why don't we just say, hey, 8 conference games across the board? And then Notre Dame has to do whatever the hell Notre Dame has to do. I don't know. They'll figure it out. But for everybody else that matters, like, make it 8 games across and call it even. Or add another bye. I don't love the idea of that, but they still get, you're still getting, unlike in the NFL playoffs, you get 3 weeks between conference championships and the first round of the playoffs.
Right. Yeah. You don't need that much time.
And there are only a handful, not every one of these teams is going to be playing for conference championships. And they're still going to, especially if divisions continue to exist, right? Like in the Big Ten, if Ohio State wins the East, Michigan's out, but they're going to make the playoff. They get another week off. Like Ohio State wins it, they get a bye, right? And then you still have teams with essentially an equal amount of rest. And
you could almost argue a little bit that having too much rest could negatively impact a team. Maybe that happened to Michigan this year, but when you look at how the MLB added a wild card game,
and then teams who played,
right? You had the Phillies playing the Braves, who had the bye, and the Phillies, who wouldn't have made it 2 years ago, were in it. They got past the Cardinals, and then they just destroyed the Braves because the Braves had they kind of got out of their rhythm while Philly was so in their rhythm. I know it's different with football and baseball, but then you have Philly go all the way to the World Series, and there's an argument to be made there for sure. But then my other thought was, with college football expansion, with conference realignment, I guess, I feel like we might be seeing, in the next 5 to 10 years, some crazy super conferences where it's you're never really going to play
in a conference
an FCS team or in the conference championship, but you might have one bye game where you pay Georgia Southern to come into town and play, but the rest of the season is going to be, because there's 20 teams in the SEC, you're just going to be going, right?
Because I don't know, it'll be interesting because the SEC said that they were going to do those pod games where you play, the same 3 teams every year and then a rotating cast for the rest of your conference games. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out. But
right.
So speaking of changes in college athletics, we talked about the changes that are coming. NIL this year has tremendously impacted how we view college football, college basketball, the whole 9 yards. The G League and what that has been meant to college basketball over the last 2 years has changed how that looks. I think a lot of people since COVID have complained that there hasn't been a lot of star power in college basketball.
You see I made a TikTok about that. I don't know if you saw it.
I don't know if I watched it, and I don't know if I agree or disagree, because there are points where, there's no Zion. Yeah, there's no, but I also think we just happen to have a run where, when you look at some of the last number 1 picks, this year it's going to be Wembanyama, and number 2 will probably be Scoot Henderson. Who was the number 1 pick in last year's? Paolo. Was great for Duke. The star power was there last year.
100%, yeah.
I don't know why. Why is it a problem this year?
I don't know. The way I see it is kind of how we were talking about Tennessee earlier, where it's I can't really think of a team that I look at and I'm like, this is such a just complete roster. I watched the 30 for 30, like the Fab 5 30 for 30 the other day. You've seen it?
Yeah, great 30 for 30.
Fantastic, amazing. But like having like 5 freshmen and a bunch of like veteran guys who were great for you coming off the bench, it's like that team is insane. Whereas this year, like your Purdue's and whatnot, where it's like, okay, you have Edey, who is a star, but he's a big man star, so it's not as flashy, right? He's probably not going to be a great NBA player, if an NBA player at all. But you look at the rest of that Purdue team, and it's like, are any of them even above like a role player in your eyes? You know? Whereas you think of years past, like even last year's Duke team, you have a ton of talent, like through and through, whether it's freshman, sophomore. You go back to those Kentucky teams.
Bro, that
in their time, Villanova, 2016, 2018, stacked. This year, I don't know.
It's interesting. The Kentucky point is one that I'm still confused on, because when you look at their roster and the amount of stars, like recruiting stars they have on that roster, it's impressive. They have a lot of like 4 or 5-star guys. And then nothing stands out and they suck ass this year. They're not going to make the tournament. Like, it's awful. But like, it's their recruiting class from that to like when they had the Harrison twins, Tyler Eulis,
the platoons, Devin Booker, Willie Cauley-Stein.
Like that wasn't like, there's not that much of a talent difference if you look at like stars compared from then to now. I think part of it is who is winning these games. Like, who is at the top of college basketball right now? Like Nate Oates in Alabama, like they had a phenomenal, freshman. But like outside of that, they built that team on a lot of good transfers and developing.
The transfer window is definitely a big thing. Yeah.
Like at UNC, a lot of talent. Like, but we're not talking about Caleb Love and Armando Bacot because the team is barely going to make the tournament. Like they need to win one of these or win out. Like Duke, obviously not, at the top of anybody's minds right now. I think the problem is we have a lot of down blue bloods, and not that we have a lack of talent. It's that the talent went to these blue bloods and then they haven't succeeded. So we're not hearing about them because they're not good.
Well, I think that it might just be that last year's recruiting class wasn't great. And then again, we're having a lot of guys that were great, went to the draft or, graduated, blah, blah, blah. And then the G League and all that. So I think, and my point when I made that TikTok was more so like, why isn't it being marketed the same way it used to? Because when we were growing up,
dude, the hype used to be like
the hype used to be, especially this time of year, like you would expect like so many just casual fans to be like, oh my God, well, I'm pretty excited for this Kansas TCU game.
Yeah.
Right? Whereas I feel like nobody really cares. And I think that is because of a lack of talent. And maybe there isn't a lack of talent. I think there's great coaches, and I think that I love college basketball regardless, and I'm all in on this year. But I think that just we've had an off year in the sense of like Duke had Derek Lively and Dariq Whitehead, the number 1 and number 2 overall recruits on the big board last year, according to 24/7. Both are like role players for that team.
Yeah.
Neither are the star. They're 3rd, 4th, 5th options. That to me is crazy. It's like, well, Derek Lively can't shoot. He's great on defense. He can get rebounds. He can dunk. But like, why was he number 1? Why was he the number 1 overall recruit? And Dariq Whitehead is a great shooter, but that's all. Can't really do anything off the bounce that well. Why is he number 2? And you could go down the list, but it's like, where are these? Like, I just feel like maybe we just had a bad year as far as talent.
Yeah. Hey. It falls on, Hot Seat Nick and Smash Hit Sports shoulders. We'll bring the hype for the next couple of weeks, but
hopefully this got you hype.
Dude, I'm excited. I have never understood the lack of hype around college sports. There's so much fun. There's so much energy. Like my least favorite people on the planet. And this might be the dumbest rant in the world. You may disagree with me. You may not. Fucking court storming police are the worst goddamn people on the internet. Nobody should ever be, oh, what are these college kids storming the court for? Their rival wasn't even ranked top 10. It's only a top 11. Shut the hell up.
Yeah, I'm so with you, dude. And it's because of the passion. Like, why are you trying to limit the passion and make it like a pro league? It's not like that.
No.
And the thing is, Clemson storms the field regardless of who they play in football. It's called the Meet at the Paw, and after every game, all the students come out and they meet at the Paw and they sing freaking alma mater song, and it's fantastic. Did it a ton of times, loved it. And then sometimes we'll like beat like Syracuse this past year at home.
Yeah, and then you're gonna storm the field after Syracuse. Syracuse is overrated.
You barely beat Syracuse. It's like, no, we do that every time. Stop, live your life, get a life. Honestly,
dude, that's the worst people on the planet.
I completely agree. It's bothered me. It actually has like really gotten under my skin sometimes when I like go on Twitter after a game and I'm like, oh my god, shut up.
It's always some dork in a tie, and he's like, oh, we would have never stormed the court. Shut up, dude. You were in college. You have a couple beers. You go to a game. Yeah.
Why wouldn't you want to? You should want to storm the court.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like the only way I get it is if it's like two unranked teams in like college basketball, like VCU Dayton.
Okay.
Like if Dayton wins at home, like and they storm the court, I'd be like, that's weird. But like if I knew that they had a tradition of doing that, I'd be like, oh, well, that's great. Good for Dayton.
Yeah. Whatever. It bothers the hell out of me.
100% agree.
All right.
100%. Glad you brought it up.
Yeah, man. All right. We've gone damn near an hour. Is there any other? We have a couple topics that we might have left on the board here. Is there anything else we want to hit before we call the podcast? Before we go to making all that TikTok content that you know and love?
I don't think so. I think an hour is probably pretty good for you. I'm guessing.
Yeah, that's typically about what I normally do. So.
Yeah, like I feel like that's perfect. We covered a lot. College sports only, which is I love it.
Beautiful.
Right?
Chef's kiss.
It's the best 7-week stretch. Now we're a 6-week stretch in the world, right? Post Super Bowl until the end of March Madness is the pinnacle of excitement for me, especially because the sun's going down late in the day. You might not feel this, but it is getting warmer down here.
I don't feel that at all.
But you might hear a bird chirp once in like 3 weeks. You might see a daffodil sprout through the snow.
I'll get to see a goose shit on my truck as it's flying back north or something. I don't.
Right? Yeah. You might just be freezing cold and miserable, but I love it. It's fantastic. Gonna get my Girl Scout cookies soon. It's the greatest time of the year.
Hell yeah. So if you guys like this content, make sure you subscribe to the podcast. Nick, we'll have to have you back on because somehow an hour was still not enough time.
We can talk for days on end. My guy.
Absolutely. So make sure you guys give him a follow on TikTok at Hot Seat Nick. I appreciate you, and we will see you in the next one.